Hey, White Sox fans. This is Ladies Night podcast number 8 on Sox Populi. It's hard to believe in this horrible season we've made it to 8 episodes, but we've had plenty to talk about and plenty to complain about. We're going to kind of kick off today talking about the ESPN article that Jeff Passan or Passan, and we're talking about which way you say it, wrote today, and there was kind of a lot in there. So I'm just going to toss it to you, Hannah. You threw it in our little Slack chat to talk about it. So I'm going to start with you and see kind of what your thoughts were when you were reading that long piece today.
Yeah, so if anybody didn't read it, kind of like the short rundown was Jeff went and I think it was him himself that was actually like interviewing members of the team just on hey, this is the worst team in history. We want to see like what that means and like how the players kind of deal with that on a day-to-day basis, especially when you have 162 games. So he talked specifically to Davis Martin, a little bit from Garrett Crochet, and talked about Grady Sizemore. And it was honestly more of like a positive vibe than I thought it was going to be. Um, Basically, the article talked about how the players are kind of still in good spirits, trying to stay positive and have an overall good vibe in the clubhouse, which I found very interesting because all we've heard from, the older parts of this core that probably aren't even here anymore from the last few seasons was that they did not really have a good clubhouse vibe. And so it's interesting to see that even though they are so bad, they at least have that aspect, still. And it kind of made me feel for them because it's like, okay, looking back, you see this core group of guys, Andrew Benintendi, Gavin Sheets, Nicky Lopez, Davis Martin, Jonathan Cannon, Garrett Crochet, like they seem like good guys. They seem like they're trying. They seem like they do care about winning. It's just they're not reaching that level. And it was kind of interesting to kind of hear that, and it made me like feel for them a little bit. But it also made me realize that the biggest factor that I found in it was that it all comes down to this whole mess being an ownership problem, because although that the players aren't good enough themselves, they aren't being given any more, good pieces or veteran leadership or like star players to kind of learn from and grow from, and are kind of just being thrown into this mix, saying, hey, figure it out. Now we have, even more rookies coming in that are just, hey, figure it out. And, the veterans that they did sign were Martin Maldonado, Kevin Pillar, whoever else that they signed on cheap contracts that didn't even make it, halfway towards the season. So it just kind of made me more mad at, everybody's obviously already mad at ownership more so than the fans, I would think, but it made me realize how much it really is on ownership and kind of made me at least feel a little bit for the fans. Like they aren't the ones that deserve, the constant, empty ballparks and like the constant boos and like the constant just, crapping on them every chance they get. Yeah, they're not performing good, but they're not really being helped out that much either. So.
Yeah, it was chocked full of all kinds of, I guess, good nuggets. And it was interesting to me that the overall vibe definitely, which we all knew, was that they clearly did not vibe with Pedro Grifol at all, and called his type of leadership intense, and Sizemore is more relaxed and nurturing. And just with the comments of, Davis Martin saying, we need to kind of keep our sense of humor about it, and enjoy the wins when we get them, and kind of have a positive attitude. And it sounds like it's a very different shift in terms of philosophy from how Pedro was running it to how Grady is running it. So that was like kind of my interesting takeaway about it. In addition to Crochet was kind of, he was the more animated person, I think, in being interviewed, because he kind of kept dropping like the F-bombs and stuff. And so like he, to me, like emitted a passion about the game still, even though that they're losing, and frustrated about it. But like, he definitely was still passionate about baseball and trying to come through this dark place to the other side of it. How about you, Allie? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the one big thing for me, especially as someone who's been a little bit more, I won't even say a little bit, a lot removed from what's been like, I see what's going on. I know what's going on. I know it's bad, but I'm definitely not as engaged as I have been in past seasons. But this article really like humanized the players and like reminded me that these are just guys that play baseball for a living, and like it sucks just as much for them as it does for the fans, and probably even more because they're the ones that are like playing the game. And Jeff also like in the article talked about how being this bad is actually difficult. Like it's hard to lose this many games in a row and like be this bad. And so at some point, like the exchange between Jonathan Cannon and Garrett Crochet, where they were like, oh, that's a cheap hit, and these guys just keep diving and like catching and whatever. And it's like, yeah, it does start to feel like nothing can click and nothing can go right. And at some point you just kind of have to laugh. And then I also really appreciated them when they were talking about that. I think it was the Jankowski home run robbery from Andrew Vaughn, and they're like, now we have to go on Instagram and like see it all over Instagram, and rightfully so. It's probably like the best catch we've seen all season. But like, you know, they're not only living it, but then they go on social media, and I'm sure some of them more than others like go online and plug in. But like, I can only imagine being that bad and then having to see the commentary online about being that bad. So yeah, I think it just reminded me that like these are just guys that want to play baseball, and they don't want to be bad. Like nobody in that clubhouse wants to be terrible at baseball. And I do think to some extent it's just like they've been dealt a bad hand, like Hannah said. And like when nothing's going your way, sometimes it just continues to domino effect and be absolutely terrible. So
Yeah, it's almost kind of like, as I was reading it, it's like indescribable. Like you just can't even really, I mean, it doesn't happen very often, right? I mean, we talk about the 62 Mets forever, and then you have the 2003 Tigers. I mean, those are decades and decades in between this stuff. So it doesn't happen very often. And so to kind of dig in and try to figure out all the pieces and parts of it that, you know, went wrong. And it's a huge task. It just isn't a simple problem. And it's also not going to be a simple fix. I think that's the other part of it for me.
Well, it could be, but it could be they don't. That's not how the organization works, by going out and solving the problem with money and players. And I'm not saying that they would get everybody in free agency, but it's like if you're openly admitting to the fact that you're going to basically run out the same group as next year with some prospects and hope that they can magically be better, and are willingly admitting that you're not going to go out and spend money to at least get, like one or two. I'm not even talking like big name. I'm talking like middle named people, people worth like a 70 to 90 million dollar contract. You don't even got to go triple digits, just somebody that you're willing to go out and target and get, that will be a good middle of the lineup guy that's, a little bit older, like I said, like a veteran presence type guy. That's kind of like what I was trying to pull up my tweets from earlier after reading this article, and I specifically said, all I learned from this is that these are actually a great group of guys who get along and want to win, and Sizemore also seems that way. But the problem, which we still know, lies within the ownership. Ownership is not giving these young guys the opportunity to have a good veteran presence, and not giving them any help. Like, for example, like we used to have with Abreu. Like, you want a good clubhouse guy who is also a good player. We don't have that. And like obviously the guys get along, and obviously they're not that good if they have 36 wins in September. And I know that being good matters, but they could potentially, some of these guys, be good, especially with the young pitching, with like a good core and ultimately a really good few players in free agency, but that's not going to happen. So it's just like, where do you go from there when you have already ruled out the fact of spending any money and getting any players? Like, how can you go into the next season, and this one's not even over yet, and they're going to have that weight on them, like knowing, hey, you're stuck. They're basically stuck, and we're not getting any help.
Yeah, I think the other piece that stood out in the article for me relates to this, in that clearly there's some lots of organizational gunk going on, because when you hire a guy who's in charge of leadership, culture, and continuing education, Brian Mailer, I guess is how you pronounce his name. This is the first time I'd ever heard of him or seen his name anywhere. And the article kind of inferred that money that could be or should be spent on free agents is going to fund the committee that this guy is heading up to have some big changes throughout the front office and organization. So that to me was very, I don't know, very bizarre. And I'm not really sure what to make of it. So I don't, did either one of you catch, or any of you catch that part of it and have any thoughts about that?
That was like the next thing that I was going to bring up as well, was the Mailer situation, because like you said, Melissa, I've never heard of that man in my life. Where's the Kiki Palmer meme that's like, I'm sorry to this man. But two, like, the tone of that section of the article was like really weird to me, because it was almost like they were like trying to sell this situation where we're not going to spend money on free agency, but we're also going to tout this guy, and we're going to quote Jerry's statement from earlier this week saying that like change is coming from within and we've made hard decisions and all this stuff. And like, you're talking in vagaries. Like what is changing? Like I don't quite understand. And it's all like, sources say that, like, you know, these things are going to take years and like changes are going to be happening over multiple years. But like, this is beyond this one situation, but fans have been asking for years for ownership to just be more transparent about what the plan is, and like in any aspect. And this is just another piece of this puzzle where they're just, I don't know what's happening. Like okay, so you're not going to spend money in free agency. Fine. Thanks for admitting that sooner rather than later. But also then like, tell me what concrete evidence you're using to move forward to make this clubhouse better so that your players that you have are better. I don't get it. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Are they sharing this stuff with the players? Because do the players understand the vision? Because we certainly don't. And being outsiders, I mean, I don't know. I feel like your fans should understand your direction that you're taking, but do they understand with this leadership, culture, continuing education committee investigation, whatever? Do they have any understanding and idea so they can buy into this process? I don't know. It's just so strange.
I feel as if, like, not for us, but just for everybody, I feel like we need to remind ourselves and everybody that this is not a normal season. This is the worst that we have ever seen in the history of baseball, and this is what we're getting from it. Like, we would deserve, you know, all of this, even if it was a 60-win season, a 70-win season, a 50-win season, because we're supposed to be in our contention window. But the fact that 3 years after our contention window, we're having these conversations about being the worst team in history, the fact that we have 30-something wins in the end of September, this is major. Like, this is so bad. And this is all we're getting. We're still getting the same cryptic stuff. We're still getting no answers. We're getting just admitting flat out that you're not going to go spend money. It's like, how is this allowed? Like, it mind boggles me. It genuinely does, because I'm just in shock. I'm still in shock, honestly, that this is even happening, because I have kind of been disassociated from it, tuned out, because I can't even like accept the fact that we have 36 wins. But it's just like, how do we not deserve more? How are we not getting more? Like, I genuinely don't understand at this point.
Hey, Delia, thanks for joining us. We're just talking about the ESPN article from this morning.
God.
So if you want to jump in and have any thoughts about it, go ahead.
I mean, Hannah kind of nailed it. It's like, this is our window. The money will be spent. And if I know anything about certain men, especially men in power, they will lie. And Jerry Reinsdorf lied. He said the money will be spent. It was not spent. It was spent on one maybe big contract. It is not Benintendi's fault that he got paid, but it is the fault of the front office for signing that contract. And he made me bite my words, because yesterday he had like a 2 home run game and did really well. So he at least has been on a tear lately. But the one part of the article is they can't even fail right. Like, they can't even tank correctly after the because we won't get certain draft picks because of like they're trying to punish tanking. They're like, unlike the Cubs, like the Cubs will overshadow the White Sox. Like, they're 108 years, like everything. The fact that they did it all right, they still let go almost all but one guy. Kind of similar to the White Sox. So I had little to no sympathy when they were like, oh my God, like we got rid of all these guys. And I'm like, welcome to the club. Like, this is real baseball. Like, this is what happens. You don't get attached. But I think the article about that section of the article really ticked me off, because we need transparent. We deserve transparency. I'm not saying we deserve it, but we do, because we're sticking with this team, whether we like it or not, whether we were born into it, married into it, or we just happened to come by it. And it is unfair to the people that are loyal, and kind of like my uncle. He's a season ticket holder. He became a season ticket holder because his dad was a season ticket holder. It's like a generational thing that you pass on to the next generation. I will be upset no matter what happens. Like, at this point, I'm like, well, we can't even get the record. Like, come on. If we want to be bad, let's just be bad and own it and just be the worst and set that record and have it in the history books. Because if we can't be decent, we can't be medium, we can't win a division. I'm going to blame that specific meme from the NBCSN White Sox talk that's like, all this room in the division. It's the stupid, not that Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is stupid, but it's that specific image where Will Smith's just all alone, like kind of arms crossed. That put a curse. And losing the goose, just losing the camaraderie of the 2020 and 2021 teams collectively, that consistency, that roster, it kind of like, we had the arrogance, like, oh, you can put any manager at the helm. Well, they did. And I think it was really, really, really the hiring of Tony La Russa that still, it's been 4 years I haven't moved like the initial hiring. And that just started, that had continued narrative of like, let's bring back all of our wayward retirement home people that should not be brought back under any circumstance. So overall, I think Passan had the opportunity to go very low, and I feel like, I'm not saying that he should have, but he really should have, because there is so much criticism there. But there's a lot of anger, because this team's been part of my family for generations. It will be part of my family, hopefully long after I'm, like, my mom's gone, people in my family that introduced me to the sport. But right now, it's just, I'm shocked that there's still people that are sticking with the Sox, because that's what my grandpa always told me, like, stick with the Sox. And I get why people are saying I'm glad my loved one saw everything, because I just can't defend it. I can't explain it. I've had people give me look, dead relative, like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's not, this isn't, this is a person.
Yeah, I think you make a point though, like, Passan had the opportunity to go low, but like, I don't think he should have, because I don't think that was the point of the article. that he specifically like was getting at. Because I think like everyone, whether you're just a casual baseball fan or you're a diehard of a different team or you're a diehard of the White Sox, like everyone knows how bad it is, right? And I think everyone's a little bit morbidly curious about like what is the vibe? Like when you are that bad, like is it oppressive in a locker room? Is everyone just pissed all of the time? Like I think Passan did a good job shedding light on what it is like to be in an environment that is very negative, but still try to find silver lining within it. While also recognizing that like this is not normal and that there is onus on ownership and that Jerry has been by fans and by others, you know, what's the word? Not admonished, but you know, like yeah, like people have talked badly of him, and like I think there's a balance to all of that because yeah, I talked earlier, Delia, like before you got out about like humanizing the players, and I think you know that was a big part of it, just being like this sucks and they're still having a good time to the extent that they can, but yeah, I don't know. Because the other part of the article that did kind of piss me off was this like, oh, they hired from the outside. Like Chris Getz hired all of these people from the outside or whatever, but it's like Getz hired his old teammate. And then like, I feel like the one guy that I'm like, okay, that made some sense was Josh Barfield. Yeah. But like, otherwise, I don't know. There's obviously Jeff Passan like works within the realm of MLB, and to some extent, like, I don't want to say carry water, but like there's a line you have to balance, right? Where you can't just like completely talk shit about like the organizations. But sometimes I'm like, could you just talk shit?
Yeah.
In those aspects of the article, you know?
Yeah, that's what we're there for, right? Yeah. We can talk this shit.
I really appreciated that he kind of just shed light on the morbid curiosity. Like, it is a terrible, by all means considered, but I did appreciate that he was like talking to the young guys and like, there's misery. Like, is there something to be said about misery loves company? Like, there is something to be said because they're building, not to bring back the word camaraderie, but they're bringing that semblance back. But I deeply appreciate Grady Sizemore for just taking it on the chin and just kind of being, I mean, yeah, you kind of want the main job, but you're also making the best of what you have. And I just really appreciated Davis Martin going like, you know, you're on the razor's edge. You could go insane, or you could. I'm like, do we need to call someone? Like, I'm concerned on your behalf, but it does suck. Like, I can't imagine you pitch your heart out and then the infield crumbles. Or like, there's no run support. Like, there's certain things in a normal season where you're like, oh, the bullpen blew it, or like, but now it's like, no, it really is that. It's just. I think I briefly read somewhere like the 1962 Mets really don't want this to happen. Like, they really don't want this record to be beat. They feel bad. And I'm like, I can't imagine any member of the Mets saying something nice. But like the fact that they felt bad is just, I think it's more of a, you can find connection with other fan bases, like the Athletic, like the A's for sure have banded with us. They're like, we both hate our owners. Like, we hate ownership. Let's just, you know, we should be better. We deserve better. But there's so many things. I understand why Jeff had to carry water, but I'm also like, come on, just.
So like the A's just got eliminated from contention, like yesterday.
Yeah,
and we were eliminated in August. So
month ago.
Yeah, we're in a league of our own. I kind of like living here. I don't know. I'm gonna just Hannah, Melissa.
Well, I have an interesting something that I was thinking about. Is any of this generational with how this particular group of guys is dealing with this? Because I'm thinking back to like, okay, I mean, I'm in my 50s, so like this is happening, and Carlton Fisk and Ozzie Guillen and those guys are in the clubhouse. They're like throwing shit, and it's gonna be like they're gonna be tearing down the young guys and yelling at them and just telling them to get their shit together. And you have like an old time manager who's all like cranky and approaching it like that way. And then you kind of have now this like soft soul of Grady Sizemore and the young guys and the relaxed and nurturing. And so is it like a generational thing, and we're kind of witnessing that play out live here in how the game has changed?
I think so.
Yeah,
like I mean, I was for, when Pedro was still the manager, I was like, get this dude out and put in, I don't even care if it's like Ozzie Guillen, just someone needs to yell at them. Like I was all for that. I think that these players need to be like, like old school, like get mad, like they don't have anybody that's throwing stuff around the locker room. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but like they don't have anybody that's like super mad about it. And I feel like that's why I'm like starting to feel bad for them and sympathize with them, is because all of these like guys, they're so young and they're almost like rookies to me, because they're just so like pure. But it's like, do I want my baseball players to be pure? No, I want them to be like throwing the bats, like getting, I want them to be like playing baseball. And I just think back to the other core of a bunch of a-holes, honestly, like it was like Dallas Keuchel and like even Moncada, like these people that didn't care about baseball because they got paid. And these guys that are playing right now, they haven't got paid yet because they don't know
out, and they're losing every time. Like, that's where I'm
like,
like,
sad.
I'm on the side of the nurture, but I'm like, do I have to watch dodgeball with y'all to just get the point across? Like, get angry.
That's the problem. It's like I like that they're so nice and stuff, but it's like I don't. Okay, like I'm sure you guys are great people, but like we need baseball. Like this is a sport. Like we need to get tough. We need to be mad. You need to be mad that you are this bad. Period. Like I get it. You want to laugh and joke around, but like come on.
But also, like, we're so far gone at this point. Try some new things. Nothing's being fixed this season at this point. There's 10 games left. Like, and I mean, even when Sizemore like got hired, right? Like the season was gone. There was no coming back from that. And so at some point it's just like, okay, like let's throw crap at the wall and see what sticks, because like, based on sources that we've heard, like Pedro was yelling at them and telling them that it was their fault and they needed to get it together and all of that.
But do you think, Allie, it makes a difference because Pedro never played in the majors?
Yeah.
Like, that's my thing. Like, they were just like, why are we going to listen to you? Like, you don't even know what you're talking about, you like career minor league bench guy.
Yeah. And, like Jeff Passan did bring that up in the article too, like, and Grady Sizemore, like, brought that up in his section of the article, talking about, like, he knows what it's like to be good and to be on good teams, but he also knows what it's like to, like, be a veteran presence and, like, kind of bring in those new rookies and also deal with injury and watching your career fade and those types of things. So, at first, and this kind of moves away from maybe the article a little bit, but I think like when Sizemore got hired, it was like, okay, we just need a fresh body in that position. And Sizemore, like, this is his first season. That was his first season coaching. And so it's kind of an odd thing to look at a 42-year-old with 5 months of coaching experience and not on a major league level. and you ponder and ask yourself, why is this man being promoted to a major league manager? But also in that same sense, like, why not? Try it and see what happens. I don't think that he's a long-term solution. Like, I realistically, like, don't think he's going to be hired next year, but I do think from a perspective of giving him a shot, like, does that change the way that Chris Getz and the rest of the team view the hiring process and who they choose to interview and hire going forward this winter? Like, maybe they do choose a younger guy who has less experience or is going to bring a different vibe. Like, if the roster is not going to change very much, then perhaps talking about, like, what did you like about Sizemore that we could find in maybe a more experienced man. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, again, this is all like things that maybe smart people would do, and that's not the White Sox organization. So
and we're so far in the weeds. Like, there's just so much, like, just even the half an hour that we've been talking, there's just like so many directions and so many things that are confounding variables. And it's just like, I don't know, to see the way out of this in even a 5-year time frame for me, I can't envision it yet.
It's just like, so. Jerry Reinsdorf is still going to be alive in 5 years, and that is, that's fine. More power to him, but like, maybe he could be alive and retired, and that like, that's the part that I don't trust is going to happen, because like, he just loves sucking the fun out of Chicago sports. And so, this goes back to rants that I've been on before. Like, we're in the weeds talking about all of these things and all of these layers, but like, it all goes back to Jerry at the end of the day, and like, him departing from the organization and actual change occurring. And like, until that happens, we're just going to continue to sit here and talk in circles and talk about the same things. And it's just going to be the same problems, but with different people, because at the end of the day, like, I'm still not convinced that Jerry's not pulling strings behind closed doors. Like, you don't promote a guy like Chris Getz that internally if you don't think that you're going to be able to pull some strings like a puppet.
Or you just don't care.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. But yeah, he like claims to like, he even like care. Even in the article, he said like, oh, he wants to win, like, blah blah blah, and I'm like, but you also just said that you don't want to spend money on free agency. So I don't know.
He doesn't want to win. He has to say that because he's an owner. He can't say, I don't care about my team, or else someone's going to step in and, I mean, it would be better to just say that so he can step in and just get it out of the way. But it's just like, at this point, I mean, there is, if anybody doesn't know it now, like, I will tell you, there's not going to be any changes that will take this team seriously as long as he is the owner. So it's honestly just waiting until he decides, hey, maybe one day he'll decide, I'm going to retire. I'm going to enjoy my retirement and sell this team. And if he doesn't, then we're just going to be talking about the same things for however long it is. I don't know at this point. But there's not going to be any changes as long as he's in charge. He's made that very clear with everything that's happened just within this year, not even counting all the way back to the La Russa hire, honestly. And yeah, I mean, there's no point in investing your time, your heart, your money, all of that, when it's basically being, laughed at and told to your face that there's not going to be any significant changes. You can say you want to win, but it's the same thing. Apologies mean nothing without change. That goes for this too. You can't say, sorry, we just had the worst season in MLB history. But we're not going to go out and get anybody. So have fun next year. Buy the milkshake. You can't do that. You can't go out there and say an apology without change. It's the same in any instance. And nobody is falling for that at this point. So it's just, there's nothing more to say than what we've already spent saying. And it's like, I can only get mad about this so many times. It's just, it obviously all comes from passion, like all of us, but you have to disconnect. And I have disconnected, but then I have a podcast and all my emotions that I haven't talked about for months come out. And that's just the reality of it. Because if I didn't disconnect myself from these last few months, I would be going crazy. And I see it on Twitter. I see the people who haven't, disconnected. I'm like, what are you guys doing? How are you still watching this? How are you still like I try to watch when I can, but it's like I said, I used to plan my days around this team. I used to do everything for this team, and I just can't do that anymore. So that's what, that's what this is doing to people. And it's like, why would anybody want to do that to dedicated fans? It doesn't make sense.
When I was maybe grade school, like fourth grade, I was voted best advocate for the White Sox. So I kind of took that award very seriously because it was the 2008 won the 1-game playoff and then got bounced out the first round. But I was this close, dangerously close, with both the Blackhawks and the White Sox right before everything kind of just went down. Jimmy Fallon and Fever Pitch, if y'all are familiar with him. I didn't have curtains, but I had a lot of posters, and I'm pretty sure you would have caught me watching footage of one of the worst White Sox playoff games. I love this team, but I also don't love what it's done, what
to our mental health. What is done to our mental health?
I don't love the fact that we've always been kind of the little brother, but it used to be funny, haha, this is a great little thing, oh yeah, Cubs, you got us, great. But it's not funny anymore. The jokes aren't hitting the same, and now they bring back Sox Fest, it's just, oh, now we're bringing it back. And
and here's the kicker too. This is the other thing that we have to remember. Next year is the 20th anniversary of the 2005 World Series.
They're gonna milk that so bad.
So we're going to talk about this. Hold that thought,
Okay.
Allie. This is a good part to transition. We're going to take our quick break so that our wonderful advertisers can make us the big money for doing this podcast. And then we'll be right back and we'll pick up from there. So hang on. We'll be right back. All right. So we left for the break talking about how next season, 2025, we're running the same thing out, and it's going to be the celebration for the World Series team, the 20 years, which is insane. So pick up where you were leaving off there, Allie.
Yeah. The reason why Sox Fest was announced to return next year, I will put money on it, is because there will be 0 active players showing up for any type of Q&A. Jerry Reinsdorf will not have to get on a stage. It is going to be a 20th year reunion the entire year. We are going to milk the nostalgia out of it until we can milk it no more. And, to no fault of their own, fans are going to eat that shit up like no other. People thrive on nostalgia, and everybody knows that. And it's going to drive me up a wall that is what is going to get the White Sox season. That is what is going to get them through next season, is just milking every single dollar that they can for the 20th anniversary. And also they will use that to turn a blind eye to another below 500 season. Now based on what we know, is probably going to be another 100 loss season. They are going to be dangling a carrot all season. Oh, look at, remember when we did that? Remember when we went 4-0 in the World Series and we swept the Houston Astros? Cool. Remember when Mark Gurley pitched on a beer because he was told he wasn't going to have to work out of the bullpen and he was a little bit drunk?
The distraction technique.
Yeah.
Here, look over here so that you're not paying attention to what's going on over here.
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Well,
bobblehead. Take it.
Yeah. Luckily, I will not fall victim to that because I was 4 years old. I have no nostalgia attached to the team. I do not care about the 2005 World Series. I don't remember a single lick of it. I was 4 years old. So they will not be getting me. And I don't think they'll be getting a lot of the fans my age because we don't remember it. We don't know. We don't care. We care about now. We care about when we're in our 20s, we want to enjoy a good baseball team. This is the, start of some of our careers in sports and stuff like that. I don't care about what you did when I was 4 years old.
So you need to go to Sox Fest and you need to get on the microphone and you need to say that. And then you need to have all the young people in the audience like stand up with you and cheer so that they hear that loud and clear, because there will be stupid suckers like me who are like, oh, Mark Burley. Oh.
I mean, I love Mark Burley. Like, do not get me wrong. Like, I love Mark Burley. Also, like, cool. Go, like go live your life. Like, go coach your son's baseball team. I don't like, like I get it. I understand, but it's really unfortunate that it's fallen. If they were playing any other form of baseball than they are right now, and they are trying to sell any other form of baseball than they are going to next season, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's cool. But like,
it's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing that like that's what we're gonna have to.
Yeah.
I mean,
doing this in front of Paul Canerco, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. And like, I would be beside myself. Like, you're pitching like that in front of Jose Contreras, in front of Mark Burley. Like, how dare you?
Mm-hmm.
I might have only been 7, but when Aaron Rowan was traded to the Phillies, I was angry, and I think I had like a journal entry in my little like limited to diary. I was about to send it, like rip the letter out, and I ended up just ripping it up because I think Oprah had just come out with like the write a letter to someone you hate and rip it up. Because I was angry, and then I'm like, oh, this is my Harold Baines trade. This is my Harold Baines trade. Because my mom had told me when Harold Baines got traded, she was so beside herself that she just cried. And I was so angry at 7. I'm like, I think this is similar. I'm angry. And that anger.
I would not be surprised if the White Sox went so far as to retire a jersey number next year.
Guaranteed.
Like,
it's good.
Yeah. I would bet $100 right now if I were a betting woman.
But it's gonna be like not in that lineage, but like kind of in that wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like that's how, and like they're gonna pump out all this merch too, and it's gonna be
Oh, and it's also the 100th year of White Sox baseball.
Oh, yay!
So I think
100 losses for 100 years.
They teased it. Like, they're gonna probably end up bringing it back. I'm like, at this point, what else have you got left to lose? They teased it because I saw like the sepia tones, and I'm like, oh, they're bringing back the old countdown video. Like, they're gonna bring back the Pirates of the Caribbean.
I love that video, I will say.
Yeah,
it was a great video. It's
when they brought that back in 2021. When they brought that back in 2021 for the playoffs, I quite literally cried.
I mean, it's just embarrassing. Like, even around the league, like if I saw a team doing this after like the worst season ever and like celebrating something from 20 years ago still, I'd be like, you guys look pathetic. Like, worry about the season going on right now. How about, like, I think that's important. Like, it's just embarrassing all around. It's like, okay, yes, I get it. Like, yeah, we won a World Series. Woo. That's better than like some teams. But when you're so stuck on it and you're just like, they have nothing to talk about now. So they're reverting to that. And it just, like you said, Allie, it matches up perfectly. Of course it has to be now. Of course it has to be following this season. And we all know how this works too well, right? Like, we know exactly what's going to happen. Like, I would bet money on it too. And it's just like, okay, like, you're not going to get me, but I know you'll get a lot of people. So, and nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm sure it was great to watch as an adult, to watch that 05 run happen and revisit it. Maybe I'm just bitter because I didn't get to see that. But it's just, yeah, like at some point you gotta focus on the future. Not even the future, just the now, the present.
Like, my little cousin, she wasn't born during the 2000s. She wasn't born until like 2008, so she was there for the 10-year. And seeing the Journey cover band, it's like we couldn't even book Journey. Like, they're free. They weren't on tour at that time. Was it was a sight. It was fun, but it was also like, oh, this is where my jadedness is coming in at 17. Like, they're only doing this so they can like make us like get us to go to games. But that was like 2015 where it was bad, but it wasn't jersey cutting bad. You know what I mean? That felt like, oh my God, you're not coming back from that. But now we're at the point of there's no coming back from this, but they're just going to go right back to it. And yeah.
Yeah.
Melissa, what are your opinions on all of this?
Well, I think that, for sure, it's Sox Fest, and then throughout the year, it's going to be all about the World Series. But then they're also, I already kind of feel it starting, just being involved with the minors part, is they're going to start hyping up the young guys too. And, we've got, it's kind of going to revert back to what we did with Moncada and Kopech and all of that. Like, they're already just kind of starting that with Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz. But let me be one of the people to say, following the minors decently like I do, I'm not anywhere near as involved as some people in the Sox sphere. It is slim pickings when it comes to hitting. So we may have some good arms, and they can roll out Noah and Hagen at Sox Fest, but show me some hitters that are going to help us in our future. And so I don't know. It's like, then again, going back to like, what is the plan and how are you going to fix this? Because it is bad. We've got hitters, but they're like 18, 19. George Wolkow is 18. Raul Perez is 19. Like, these guys aren't going to be here for a very long time. And so it could be really bleak for a very long time. And so when I go to Sox Fest, that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to be having my eye on, is how much are they like pumping this, the future is in our system and all this crap, because future is not in our system, not unless we're planning on trading a whole hell of a lot of arms in order to get people who can actually score runs, because you can have amazing pitching and you can not let any runs score. But if you don't score any yourself, you're not winning games either. So that's kind of my 10 cents on that.
That goes back to the problem would be solved if they signed free agents, but Jerry just said he's not going to do that. So,
or if we had faith in our front office to make trades that,
but like at this point, you're cultivating a farm system, right? So like, you don't really have anyone, you're not really the only person right now that's like eligible to be traded that would bring in prospects that would have hitting power is Garrett Crochet.
Right.
And you didn't trade him at the deadline. I don't really think his trade value's gone up since the All-Star break. I think he's still status quo. Like, he would still bring in a decent haul, right? But not anything that's going to solve the problem that you're alluding to, Melissa. And so
not anything within the next, couple of years for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I don't even see that being a viable option. Like, the only way in my head, like the only way that happens is if magically, like, all of the players on our roster get better overnight, or
we all have career years, right?
Yeah,
like, all of a sudden, like, they all have 2019 Yoan Moncada years, which we know is just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Take Michael's special stuff, like in Space Jam, or they magically wake up with like Rookie of the Year, the kid who had like the stretchy, I don't know.
Yeah.
When like Lopez All-Star. Woo, that's my new campaign. It's like
Nikki.
It's like who is even like, who can I even take seriously to say that they're gonna, like, there's nobody that's showing signs of improvement, or they might be decent next year on the, like, obviously on the pitching staff, but in the lineup, like, okay, yeah, Benintendi has been a little bit better.
We live in a world where Andrew Benintendi is the home run leader of our baseball team.
That's insane because that's just insane for so many reasons. But just it's
I'm like, at least like you're fine. But then I'm also like, oh my God.
But he also has a noodle arm. So
yeah.
But back to what was it, Rick Hahn, who said, well, getting Moncada back is like a trade, and I do take a baseball bat and just go ham. But
well,
speaking of Rick Hahn, briefly, did anyone see him at the Bears game on Sunday?
No.
He got caught on camera at the Bears game
in Texas.
Yeah, in Texas.
But I'm convinced. I've never thought I'd say I'd miss Rick Hahn, but I do. I mean, Getz is not even. I would, yeah. Like at least you don't trade. Like I don't think Rick Hahn would have traded away. Who did we trade away? Fetty and Kopech for Vargas. And by the way, Kopech resurgence is the most predictable thing ever, but it still makes me mad. But I think that's a whole other topic. But
he really needed to. He needed to get the hell out of Dodge, and I can't blame him for it. And I'm also like, I'd want to leave too. Like
he was on Foul Territory the other day, and they were talking about his role in on the Dodgers. It was very interesting because I very much remember him being on the White Sox being like, I want to be a starter. I want to be a starter. I'm a starter, like blah, blah, blah. And now he's like, of course, I'd love to start again one day, but like I found this role in the bullpen, and like, you know, at this point, like it's up to the team, like what they want me to, like what role they want me to have. But like I've like found a place in the bullpen, and I was like, wow.
He's on a World Series contender who he knows that they're a competitive team and respects, you know, the game of baseball and wants to win. And yeah, I don't blame him. Like, I mean, I wouldn't take this team, you know, seriously either. And I think that he has a chance if he keeps performing like he does. He knows the Dodgers will pay, you know, even if it's just bullpen money arm. I mean, like he is absolutely insane. Like I'm not shocked, but it's just, it makes me mad because it's like, okay, this happening with like other players, like if it happened with Aloy, I'd be fine with it. And it did look like at first he was kind of going off a little bit, but now he's came, you know, back to life. He's still having fun though, so good for him. But I feel like with Kopech, it just hurts the most because he was so bad. He went from extreme to extreme. Like he went from so bad this year with us to one of the top. I mean, he's everywhere. He's everywhere right now. And he is being treated like a star. And it's just crazy to see because that was
he was supposed to be our star. He was right. He was part of the rebuild. He was, I mean, Chris Sale. I mean, you know,
and now look at Chris Sale. He's probably going to win the NL Cy Young this year.
Yeah. Like what's next? Like really what's next? It's also predictable.
I've also appreciated, like, just from like the Philly side of things, like I've been kind of keeping up. Tanner Banks has been really consistent. Like he's had moments where it's been like, but not Craig Kimbrell levels of like blowing the game. At least we have the faith and consistency of knowing Craig Kimbrell, no matter where he goes, will inflict horror.
I can't believe he is still employed by the Baltimore Orioles, but
me too.
I think they haven't DFA. Like to me, I was like, he's like the Dallas Keuchel of the bullpen. And I didn't like Dallas Keuchel on a good day. I didn't like him on his best day. Like he just, to me, he never had that. Like where you could, like Lance Lynn. I'm like, it's Lance Lynn. Okay. To me, he felt like the first real, like, there's two words you got to say to me. I love the a-holes, like Mark Burley and Bobby James. You say those two words, I'm going to follow you and love you to the day I die and defend you. And then followed closely by Liam Hendricks. I still can't. My mom's within ear distance. She still hasn't gotten over that yet. So we're going to give her some peace and time for that. But I really wanted Liam to have a win, and it just sucks that he couldn't. But more power to him for sticking with it. But that's the one pitcher we don't feel bad about is Craig Kimbrell because he's just terrible.
I am so surprised he's employed by the Dodgers. Like, there's some people that I'm like, okay, yeah, like, knew that was going to happen. But I think I think the Kopech one and I feel as if Moncada started next year with the new team, which he will. I don't know if it's going to be in the major leagues. He's going to do the same thing. He's going to have a resurgence. That's just what happens. That's just our luck. That's what happens. I'm not going to be surprised by it anymore. And that's just
we're like ex that you date before you find the team, or like in this sense marry.
Yeah.
You know, like we're good luck Chuck, like, or whatever. Yeah. Better luck Ted. I don't even know what show it was, but that's the analogy I'm going with, because we're always going to be that team that doesn't develop, doesn't care. And think about how we're building a farm system, but the guy who was in charge of our farm to make it better was Chris Getz, who was in the fact that Gordon Beckham felt the need to defend him, like, Gordon, shut up.
But also, you know, leaving a toxic environment and doing better really begs the question then, going all the way back to where we've started on this conversation. Are the vibes in that clubhouse really that great? Is it really that good of a group of guys?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Literally.
I mean, granted,
but the rat starts.
Granted, Pedro Grafal, I do think, was playing into a lot of that. And he's been removed from the problem, or from the situation. But yeah, I'm not saying that like the guys in the clubhouse are bad people. That's not what I'm getting at. It just makes you think like, Jeff Passan's following you around. Am I on my best behavior at this point?
Right. What's really happening? Are you is Nikki Lopez really DJing? Is everybody really like yucking it up and
have this right?
All right. So we are almost at an hour here. So we're going to end with the speed round. And so we're at 36 and 115. The 62 Mets were 40 and 120. So we have 11 games left. Can we go 6 and 5 to tie the loss record? Are we gonna pass it? What are we gonna do? I want to know, each one of you think where we're gonna end up with the 11 games we have left.
This is my hope for the end of the season. I want to end the season. Okay, I am dating a Tigers fan. And I really, just for his own satisfaction, would love to go to Detroit. And I would love for Detroit to not only make the playoffs, but also give us the loss that breaks their record from 2003. I think that would be hilarious.
Cinematic.
Jason Benetti gets to call it.
Yes, because that's what we deserve.
Yeah.
And it would make my boyfriend happy too.
We don't deserve it.
We don't.
But
Jerry deserves it.
Yeah.
I just think we're gonna make it. I don't know how. I don't even know what the schedule is. I'm hoping that if we do, it's a home game and they pack it in there and everybody's sarcastic and everybody's having fun with this terribleness and cheer very loud like a playoff game if they do. I know that they don't deserve that, but I think it would be so hilarious that it would be that embarrassing. And I want that to be that embarrassing.
I also feel the same, but we're not targeting our ear at the players, like, or Grady Sizemore. Like, we are specifically targeting to the point where we might get banned, but it'll be worth it. We are just, I think I saw on Reddit, like, wear anti-Jerry shirts, like, at the last home game or whatever. Like,
but they won't let you. You can't get in the stadium.
Stop all of us. They can't stop everyone from packing in. But I mean, as much I'm not a Detroit fan, I will never be in favor, like, our pain, but I also love Benetti so much that I'm like, okay, deserved, like, that'd be so fun. But I think we deserve to do it in front of a home crowd. You know, I think we just own it, and you know, I hope it's clinched in a home crowd, but I also kind of want the Tigers to clinch on our downfall.
Well, I think so. We've been better lately in terms of the games have been a little closer. The bullpen hasn't been as bad, but we're gonna break the record because there's no 6-5. Are you kidding me? Like we've had one stretch all year where, we had more wins than losses, and it was like April or May or something like that. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that we're gonna break it. And I don't know.
We're 2-0 over our last 2 games, so
you were losing tonight.
yes.
Now, I mean, it's only the 4th, but it is, it's 1-0.
Didn't even know what the game was on.
So, all right, ladies. Well, thank you so much. At this point, we won't talk again before the end of the season, but we will hopefully be able to get together after the season and talk about when we broke the record. Where were you when we broke the record? Did you call your sons and daughters? All that kind of stuff. And maybe the managerial stuff will kind of heat up too, so we can do a season summary kind of thing, maybe in sometime in October. So thank you to Allie and Hannah and Delia for joining me tonight. And we will chat again soon.
Yay.
Goodbye.